All right, good afternoon, everyone. In this video, I'm going to show you how to stuff, pin, and sew together your pillow. So in the last video, I showed you how to use the sewing machine to sew the body of our pillow. At this point, we are now going to stuff and pin and sew our pillow. So we're going to start out with some polyfill that we have here. Okay, so we have some original polyfill, and it should say fiber fill. All right, and we just take some of this stuffing here and we shove it into our hand hole. So just give me a second and I will shove some of this stuffing into the pillow. Here we go, we're stuffing our pillow. You want to make sure that you also get the stuffing into these corners. Usually when I see students' pillows, the corners don't have nearly enough stuffing. So I need a bit more for this pillow here. And again, I'm just shoving it into that hand hole, being nice and careful not to rip any of my stitches. The amount of stuffing that you put into your pillow, it's a personal preference. If you like a softer pillow, you might put a little bit less stuffing in. If you like a firmer pillow, you might want to shove a whole bunch of stuffing in there. I just need a tiny little bit more. All right, perfect. So I'm happy with the squishiness of my pillow right now. I'm pleased with this as it is. So at this point, I'm ready to sew my handhole together. And that handhole is right over here. I call this handhole now the mouth. This is like a mouth of a kid, all right? Now let's say this student was very, very chatty. We're gonna sew their lips together. That is what we are going to do here. So you'll notice that the edge of our fabric, it's kind of folded under. This here, the part that frays, that's called the raw edge. We want the raw edge tucked underneath. So if we pull our fabric nice and tight here, those raw edges get tucked underneath, and we're just gonna place some pins to hold this mouth closed. So my handhole here is not very big, so I'm just gonna place that one pin right over there. I am now going to look for a thread that matches my fabric. That is what I want, a thread that matches my fabric. So I found this kind of off-white, tan-ish color here, and I think it matches this pillow color really, really well. So first I'm gonna grab myself one nice big arm's length of thread, and I'm going to double thread my needle. So I used my shears, I cut my thread. I'm going to grab one of my hand sewing needles, and I'm going to thread my needle. Okay, so I hold the thread nice and close. I bring the thread through the eye of the needle, and now I'm going to bring the ends of my thread together. So I know it might be a little difficult to see in the video, but I take the ends of my thread and I'm now going to create my big ugly knot. So I take the thread and I wrap it around my finger once, twice, 3 times, and this is the tail end of the thread. My needle end is going to be over here. And I rub my fingers together like I'm playing the world's smallest violin, and eventually this loop here will roll off of my finger, and I have this loop. Now I pull the loop down, and I'm left with a big ugly knot, okay? So once you have your big ugly knot, you're now ready to start sewing. We do not want to see this big ugly knot on the outside of our pillow because that would be ugly on the outside. So what we're going to do, we're going to find a little opening. We dive into the mouth and come right out the side. Pull, and the big ugly knot, say goodbye, because now he's on the inside of the pillow and we never have to see that big ugly knot ever again. It is now time to do our overcast stitch. For an overcast stitch, you go in the same side every single time. So you go through both pieces, in this case, both lips, okay? Both lips of fabric, like it's a mouth. You pull nice and tight, and you come up and over. Go through, pull nice and tight, up and over. Go through, nice and tight, up and over. And you just kind of work your way along the seam. Nice and simple. The smaller your stitches are, the stronger this will be. So we want our stitches to be nice and tiny. If you get any knots, you can kind of work take it out a little bit, pull, make sure everything is nice and neat. Through both pieces, pull nice and tight, up and over. All right, now I'm gonna try to sew this pretty quickly, but you guys are gonna take a lot of care with this, and you're gonna take your time. We're not going to rush. So we're just working our way down until we get to the end of our handhole. I'm getting towards the end. If you start to run out of thread, what you will have to do is anchor off. If you're stitching, if you end up getting to about like your thumb length, okay? If you get to your thumb length of thread, stop there and you'll have to anchor and probably rethread before you can continue. The last thing you want to do is run out of thread entirely. All right, so I'm almost done. Just about another inch to go. I know this part can get a little tedious. All right, yay, just about there. All right, fantastic. So that's my last stitch. So if we look, we should only see just a very, very tiny little row of stitching, literally just on this top edge. If you get to like the pin and if it gets in your way or anything like that, you can simply take the pin out and stick it into a pin cushion. Now, before we can cut our threads, we just have to anchor everything off. So what we're going to do to anchor off, you're going to go right under that last stitch, pull the needle through, take this loop of thread, bring the needle through the loop of thread, and you pull nice and tight. So what we did, we just threw a knot into the thread right there. So I'm going to do that again. So you go underneath, through the loop. Whoop, my pillow's getting away from me, sorry. Through the loop and pull nice and tight. I'll do that one last time. Go underneath your last stitch, through the loop, and pull nice and tight. At this point, we are ready to cut. But I don't like to cut right here just like this because then I have these tails kind of hanging out on the outside of my pillow. So what I'm going to do is actually take my needle and dive into the pillow where that last stitch was, and I'm going to come out the side of the pillow. So I dive in and I come out the side. Come on, needle, there we go. And I pull it nice and tight. So the tails of my thread are now going to be on the inside of the pillow, and I'm never gonna have to see them again. So I just take my thread and I cut it, but I don't wanna cut my fabric, so I very carefully cut the thread, snip. Now the tails are on the inside of my pillow. I'm now finished hand sewing my lovely little pillow. It's nice and squishy. I have my nice, neat overcast stitching right here. And now I can take my pillow home and enjoy it. These pillows are not for sleeping in class, but I do hope you enjoy them very much. All right, excellent.